everyone, I'm Courtney, and welcome back to You're Not Broken, You're Growing. I'm really glad you're here with us again today. In the last episode, we talked about big feelings, how they're not a sign that you're too much, but a sign that you're human, responsive, and alive. Today, we're talking about something that almost everyone misunderstands: coping skills. And before we go any further, I want to be really clear about what I mean by that. I'm not talking about the emotional regulation tools we learn in therapy. Things like grounding, deep breathing, journaling, or cognitive reframing. Those are intentional skills you practice on purpose. The coping skills we're exploring today are different. These are the automatic survival responses your nervous system developed long before you had language, insight, or therapeutic tools. These are the patterns your body created to help you get through overwhelming moments: shutting down, staying busy, people-pleasing, avoiding conflict, overthinking, numbing, perfectionism, withdrawing, becoming hyper-independent. These aren't skills you necessarily chose. They're adaptations your brain wired for protection. Therapeutic coping skills are things you do. Survival-based coping skills are things that happen in you. And here's the truth. These coping patterns are not failures. They are adaptations. They are solutions your younger self created with the tools you had. They are evidence of resilience, not weakness. Even the coping skills you don't like, even the ones you're trying to outgrow, even the ones that feel messy, inconvenient, or confusing. Today, we're going to explore how these survival-based coping patterns form, why they make so much sense, and how to gently evolve them without shame. We're going to talk about the nervous system, about childhood, about trauma, including the kind of trauma that doesn't come from bad homes, but from moments where your system had to figure things out alone. Let's take this slowly, gently, and as always, with a lot of compassion. Before we go deeper, let's take a moment to ground ourselves and settle into the body. If it feels okay, soften your shoulders. Let your hands rest wherever they feel most comfortable. Let your breath slow down just a little. Now let's take a slow inhale together and a slow exhale. Notice the weight of your body where you're sitting or standing. Notice the temperature of the air around you. Notice one thing that feels neutral or comforting: a color, a sound, a texture. Let that be your anchor. You don't have to feel calm. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to be here enough. Let's begin. A coping skill is anything your brain and body do to help you survive a moment of overwhelm, fear, stress, or pain. Some coping skills are conscious, things you choose. Some are automatic, things your nervous system does before you even think. Some are helpful and sustainable. Some are protective, but not necessarily long-term solutions. But all coping skills, every single one, come from a place of self-protection. Your brain never chooses a coping skill to hurt you. It chooses a coping skill to help you, even if that help is temporary, imperfect, or outdated. Coping skills are your system's best attempt to keep you safe with the resources you had at the time. They are not moral failures. They are not character flaws. They are not evidence that you're broken. They are evidence that you have adapted. I want to add something important here, something that helps explain why coping skills can feel so automatic, so intense, or so hard to change. Coping patterns are learned. They're shaped by experience. They are wired through repetition. You can grow up in a good home with loving parents and still develop trauma-shaped coping skills, not because anyone failed you, not because your caregivers didn't love you, but because coping is the nervous system's way of filling in the gaps. Let's break this down. Coping forms when emotional support is inconsistent. Children don't know how to regulate themselves. They learn regulation through the adults around them. If the adults were overwhelmed, stressed, distracted, anxious, or emotionally unavailable, even if they loved you deeply, your nervous system may have learned, I have to handle this alone, or it's safer to shut down, or it's safer to stay busy, or even that it's safer to be helpful than to have needs. This isn't about blame. This is about understanding how your system adapted. Secondly, trauma teaches the brain to prioritize survival, and we've talked a lot about this in our previous episodes as well. Trauma doesn't just create fear, it creates patterns. Patterns like shutting down, staying busy, avoiding conflict, people-pleasing, perfectionism, emotional numbing, overthinking, withdrawing, caretaking others, and minimizing your own needs. These aren't personality traits. They're survival strategies your brain practiced until they became automatic. Even small traumas shape coping. Coping patterns can form from medical trauma, bullying, being overwhelmed sensory-wise, being highly sensitive in a loud world, a parent's illness, emotional needs that were unintentionally missed, being the easy kid who didn't get sued, being the strong one who wasn't checked on, being praised for being low maintenance, being punished for expressing emotion, being left alone with feelings too big for your age. None of these require a bad home. They require only a moment where your nervous system had to figure things out without enough support. Coping is also creativity. Your coping skills are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of your nervous system's creativity. Your brain said, this is what I have, this is what I know, this is how I'll get through. And it worked because you're here today. Coping skills form when your nervous system feels overwhelmed or unsafe. If you didn't have emotional support growing up, you learned to cope alone. If you lived in chaos, you learned to stay alert. If you lived with criticism, you learned to anticipate mistakes. If you lived with unpredictability, you learned to shut down or fawn. If you lived through trauma, even a single moment, your brain learned to protect you quickly and intensely. Your coping skills are not random. They are patterned responses to patterned experiences. Your brain is always trying to keep you alive, connected, and safe, even if the strategies it uses are outdated. Let me give you a few examples. So the first one, the person who shuts down. They freeze during conflict. Not because they don't care, but because their nervous system learned that shutting down was safer than engaging. Example 2, the person who stays busy. They fill every moment with tasks, not because they love productivity, but because stillness feels unsafe. Example 3, the person who avoids hard conversations. They avoid conflict not because they're weak, but because they learn that speaking up leads to danger. And example 4, the person who people pleases. They say yes to everything, not because they lack boundaries, but because fawning kept them safe. Many people feel ashamed of their coping skills. They think to themselves, I should be stronger, I should be better, I should be able to handle this, I shouldn't need this. But shame doesn't help you grow. Shame freezes you. Shame keeps you stuck in the very patterns you're trying to change. You don't outgrow coping skills by hating them. You outgrow them by understanding them. Let's try a simple body scan to notice where your coping lives. If it feels okay, close your eyes or soften your gaze. And we'll start at the top of our head. Now, as we go through this, don't give in to the urge to change what you notice. Just allow yourself to be aware of what you feel in your body. So now moving from the top of our head, notice your forehead. Is there any tension or tightness that exists there? Does it feel relaxed? As you move into your eyes, down into your cheeks, your jaw. Notice now around the base of your skull. Now into your neck. Your shoulders. Your chest. Your upper arms. Your lower arms. Your hands and fingers. And back into your stomach. Your back. Now on your lower back, right around your waist, around into your hips and the core of your body. Moving down into your thighs, your knees, your lower legs, onto your ankles and feet and toes. Now scan your whole body once more. Ask your body gently, where do I hold my stress? Perhaps there's one place in particular that you felt the most tension, that you felt the most tightness. Where do I hold my protection? Where do I hold my coping? And recognize here that there doesn't need to be a right answer, just awareness of what is happening in your body. And before we move on and close this practice, go back once more and notice an area of your body that felt the most tense. Perhaps there were multiple places. And I want you now to just breathe into that area. Fill that area with warmth and compassion. Allow it to relax and feel soothed. Very good. Now let's take a slow breath in, a slow breath out, and just take one more moment to just reflect on how you are feeling now. All right, let's continue. You don't have to get rid of your coping skills. You don't have to force yourself to change. You don't have to shame yourself into growth. Instead, you can ask yourself, what is this coping skill trying to do for me? And is there a gentler way to meet that need? If shutting down protects you from being overwhelmed, maybe you could try a 1-minute pause instead. If staying busy protects you from anxiety, maybe you can try structured rest. If people pleasing protects you from conflict, maybe you can try setting one small boundary. If avoidance protects you from fear, maybe you can try a tiny step toward the thing you're avoiding. This is not about perfection. This is about evolution. So if you're able, take a moment to reflect. If not, you can always come back to this later and have a piece of paper, pen, or your notes app on your phone, whatever helps to you to answer these questions more clearly. But I like for you to just think about them for now. What coping skill do you use most often? And that coping skill could be something that you may find very helpful, but not necessarily the most effective. Or maybe it's a really great coping skill that you've learned over time. Or maybe it's even something that helps in the moment, but doesn't feel so great later. But what coping skill do you use most often? And now that you've named that coping skill, what is this coping skill trying to protect you from? And lastly, what is one small, gentle shift you could try? There is no pressure to change everything. Once again, this is about awareness. As we close today, I want you to remember this. Your coping skills are not failures. They are evidence of your resilience. They are proof that you survive things you should never have had to survive. They are signs of strength, not weakness. You are not broken. You are adaptive. You are resourceful. You are growing. If today's episode prompted you to think about possibly learning additional emotional regulation tools, I invite you to check out my channel on YouTube for other practices, including meditation, mindfulness skills, somatic work, and just some gentle exploration into self-care, emotional regulation, and nervous system regulation. But thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in episode 5.